And then like 3 days later, I get like a text about doing like an event. I look at the email for the event and then I just see the name designer, like the rapper. And I was like, wait, what? So I was like, am I shooting for like design? Like it says designer's birthday party. And then like lower, it says presented by Jake Paul. It turns out it's at Jake Paul's house. I'm like, am I gonna shoot at Jake Paul's house tonight? What's going on? Cut two, and I end up at Jake Paul's house.
Today we are with Zaul. First off, thank you so much for jumping on the show. It's such a privilege to have you on. Well, I know you based on your Instagram bio, you are a music producer, music educator, photographer, and videographer. What are some of the biggest influences that has led you on that path in your career?
Just being interested in art, like ever since a young age. Actually, the cousin who painted this painting over here was a pretty big influence on me as a child because he was really good at drawing. He is really good at drawing, and I used to see him playing guitar, and I just remember being like enchanted by it. Like I was just like, just to see someone playing a guitar was like seeing someone do magic when you're like 4 or 5 years old. I am inspired by people's abilities to do cool things.
Can you tell me a story of how you were inspired early on?
You end up meeting people that kind of show you how little you know in like a good way. There's two people I've met. This one producer who's named something something. I met him in music school, and then another producer named Zion Garcia. I guess I could get into something something. He was just this like kid who was like as tall as I was, short king, and he met him at Icon. I went to the Icon Collective, and the first day I met him, we hit it off, but I hadn't heard any of his music yet. And then they asked everyone in class, like, "Can you guys play us a piece, just so we can all get a vibe of who you are?" And he asked everyone, like, you guys want to hear something pretty or like a banger?" And they're like, everyone said banger. And then he played the song called Windex that's actually still out. And he was like 19 at that point, and he was like producing like some of the best like electronic trap music I ever heard in my life. And just seeing someone that was younger than me, because I think I was like 22, 23 at the time, that was so much better than me, was very inspiring to me.
Did you know pretty early on then that you wanted to be on the production side of music?
No, I actually didn't even know that that was a thing until I was introduced to Fruity Loops. I saw someone producing on Fruity Loops in like 2008 or 2009,
How old would you say you were when that happened?
13 or 14.
How old were you when you decided to commit and pursue this as more than just a passion?
Wow, that's a good line of question because I didn't decide until I was like 22 or 23, I think. Yeah, I'd always had the ambition of being artistic and doing it like professionally, but it's just like the majority of people are not creative. Like if you actually look at like the literature of like how many truly very creative people there are out there. So the odds are that like most people won't make it. It's a very high risk, high reward strategy. So people around you don't necessarily instill the confidence in you that it's like possible because they don't. A lot of people don't know what your ability could be. You don't even know what your ability could be. So it's pretty easy to imagine that that's a cool possibility, but not for you. Until I was 22 or 23, I kind of wandered around a little bit more aimlessly. I almost joined the military at one point. I've worked in like the marijuana industry. I've done over the phone like warranty representation for like I've done so many things all because like um wasn't necessarily confident in like going all in on this one route.
How has your perception of being creative, how has that evolved or changed over the last couple of years for you?
To me, being creative is not just like the act of like necessarily just making a bunch of things. It's like
Mm.
providing novel solutions to situations. Because if you're truly creative, you're also kind of seeking novelty. And in order to create novelty within like some type of medium, you have to understand the medium and its history well enough to delve deeper into it, and create something that is new and unique to yourself and to make it good and palatable for other people. There's like so much filtering that goes into that.
I'd love to dive into your career because you just mentioned you work on, well, a little bit in video, photography, music production. Could you tell me some of the most memorable moments in your career?
I had an internship, and it was for working for A-list artists as a playback engineer. I didn't even know what a playback engineer was. I just like saw this opportunity through my school and was like, oh, okay, I think I could do that. And I was not fit for it. I was not
Mm,
prepared. I got let go from that, and because I was pretty bitter that I got let go from that, what happened was my mom had let me borrow a camera because I was supposed to start traveling because of this job, and I just started taking it with me. I just started like walking around with it basically, and like taking a bunch of bad photos, just learning how to use the thing. Because it's like an instrument. You just have to like mess with it enough, at least if you're an intuitive person, right? So I'd walk around with this camera, and then people would ask me like, "Oh, do you want to do like a shoot with me?" Like, it'd be like a girl that's never met me. That would just be like, "Oh, like you're a photographer? It's like, do you want to shoot me sometime?" And I'd be like, "What? What are you? Like, you don't even know who I am." and then, and then I ended up meeting this guy who was like a promoter for a bunch of like LA nightlife. I started working with this guy just in exchange to like get access to like, the LA nightlife scene, which was like really cool at the time. I thought it was like really interesting because LA is like very exclusive. It's very annoying. Like it's like high school in a way.
mm,
But if you can experience it, it's pretty interesting. So I started taking my camera around with this guy, and we'd be like doing these events in exchange for me helping him out with like, like his scheduling and other stuff. And then he ended up introducing me to this foundation called Karma. And Karma is the foundation that used to throw the Playboy parties.
mhm,
So I started shooting for them, and I was shooting for free for a long while, obviously. Like I was just like trying to get experience, just trying to like just kind of using it as a lifestyle thing. I was just getting into like cool stuff and just hanging out and getting to use my camera. I was just like, this is a win-win for me.
mhm,
And so I was shooting their events for a while. One night after having shot their events for a bit, I ended up going to this event called Penthouse Mastermind. And afterwards, after the event, the owner of Karma ends up there, and he like talks to me for a little bit, but I end up leaving. And then as I'm leaving, he catches me on the way out. He calls me on the way out, and he's like, "Hey, are you like heading out right now?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I'm gonna go to a concert." He's like, "Where?" He's like, "I was like at the Whiskey a Go Go," and he was like, "Oh, I live right by there. Like, could you give me a ride?" And I was like, "Yeah, cool." And I had never gotten really like a chance to talk to this guy. He was always very busy when I met with him, but he's a very interesting person. Like he used to hang, he used to like work with Hugh Hefner. He used to, he has a lot of connections, and he's a very charismatic, like very cool person. So I was excited that he wanted to like come swing by. I ended up not even going to the concert. I ended up just talking to him in my car for like 2 hours, and then he was pretty happy with the conversation afterwards. He was like, you know what, like I've never really gotten a chance to talk to you, but now that I know where your head's at, like I want to see if I can help you out. And in LA, everyone just says stuff like that. Everyone always just talks about connecting you or whatever, so they can look cool. So I took it with a grain of salt. I was like, whatever. Like, I mean, I didn't think like whatever, be like, oh, that's great. No worries if not. And then like 3 days later, I get like a text about doing like an event. And it asked me if I could come shoot some events that night. And at that point, I had been told like I need to stop shooting for free. I was like, can I at least get gas money? Like I can't just come out for free. He's like, no, this is like a paid event. I was like, okay, great. And he was like, can you do it? I was like, he's like, just tell me yes. I promise you're gonna like it. I was like, okay. And then I look at the email for the event, and then I just see the name designer, like the rapper, and I was like, wait, what? So I was like, am I shooting for like design? Like it says designer's birthday party, and then like lower it says presented by Jake Paul. So I was just like, wait, am I about to shoot? It turns out it's at Jake Paul's house. I'm like, am I gonna shoot at Jake Paul's house tonight? What's going on? Cut two, and I end up at Jake Paul's house. I basically got paid to be at like a celebrity party, and I saw like all these people there who I'd seen before. Like I saw Lamar Odom there. I saw Chris Brown was there, Riley Reid, Nigel Houston, Logan Paul, who else? Famous Dex. I don't know. There's just like all these people that I got to take photos of that night. And I got to bring some friends in who are also photographers. Um, and then from there, that led me to shooting Jake Paul's wedding. It led to me shooting at Logan Paul's house, Logan's luau. I've shot video for The Weekend for his NFT incubator called House. I actually went up to San Francisco to do that. I was asked to do that by the art director of Instagram. His name is Ricky Baba. Shout out to Ricky Baba, great guy. It just like all of that led to so many things, you know. Oh, and I shot The Walking Dead. What's it called? The Walking Dead series finale last year. Like they're not like the episode, but like I shot their party, so I got photos of The Walking Dead. I've gotten to do some very interesting things just because I decided I want to get good at a
Yeah,
camera. I pretty much just do it when people pay me to do it.
that sounds pretty surreal. Like, what did it feel like
Surreal,
being, yeah.
surreal. It felt like the ending of like a movie or something.
How would you assess your skill level as a photographer at that time?
It was okay. It's pretty good. The thing is, like anytime that like I get into like some type of technical field, not technical field, any type of like art medium, I actually am like very, very concerned about being like good at it.
Mm,
Technically, I don't understand. Like I don't understand people that like are purely just based in expression. Like, oh, dude, I don't care. Like, I don't care. I don't care how other people are doing it. I don't care to know about ISO and all this stuff. That's whatever. Like, it bothers me not to understand the equipment I'm working on.
mm,
So from the beginning when I was shooting photography, I was learning about rules of composition. I was watching videos on Lightroom tutorials. I was um learning I shot how to shoot I learned how to shoot manual right away. I didn't even bother shooting automatic. I've never done a shoot automatic, not one single time. Even though like it took me like maybe weeks of just sitting there getting blurry photos because I wasn't setting my settings properly. I just like wasn't okay with the idea of not knowing how my camera works. So by the time I had shot the Logan Paul, the Jake Paul thing, I was pretty good. I was honestly pretty good.
wow.
Um, but and
Sounds
I
like, sorry, go for it.
what were you saying? Sounds like what?
It sounds like you're, well, a curious person, like who wants to understand how things work.
Mhm.
Secondly, it sounds like you have a strong sense of knowing the foundation, like foundational
Yeah.
principles, and have setting a foundation for whatever craft you're
Hmm.
learning. And it sounds like also that these things always kind of came, well, these creative media or crafts and art came pretty naturally to you.
I passionately go after things. I'm very interested in things, and so I'll put in the work and go through the frustration to do something well. Like I'm also a skateboarder. Okay,
Mm,
so, and like skateboarding and playing music are kind of similar in that like when you're learning a skateboarding trick, you have to try the same thing a bunch of times before you get it. And the likelihood that you're going to get it your first time pretty much like zero. Some people, I've noticed some children when I'm teaching them the guitar, they'll do this thing where like they'll they'll say I'm trying to have them play a riff. They'll try to play the riff and then they'll sit there and like mentally verbally evaluate how they did in that one take right there. And it's like if you were trying to practice your jump shot and every time you did your jump shot you sat there and like that wasn't so good. Oh God. And you're wasting time. You're literally wasting time when you could just be like, oh, okay, that I need to go more shoot more right. I need to shoot more up. I need to have more arc on it. I need to, and so that's like that to me is the way to get good at something is you just have to get it in as many reps as possible and make all the mistakes at first that you're supposed to make until everything locks into place and you know what the mistakes are and you just do it 100% right every single time. And so that to me is
mm,
like the learning process. It's like being able to deal with the mental discomfort of not being good at something right away. It alleviates the pressure of having to be perfect because
yeah.
like no one's gonna get something right the first time. There's nothing I hated more than when I would start a new job and people would yell at me because I didn't do something right the first time I did it. I'm
Mm.
like, are you stupid? Like, what do you mean? Like, how are you gonna yell at a person for not doing something perfectly that they've never done? You know? And
Yeah.
um I constantly praise people for like any progress they make, because any progress is really conceivably great, because if you look at it in the grand scheme of things, people talk about that 1% better every day. That's real. Like, you can really build people up, if you can get them to buy into the idea that this is like something that takes place over time. And the thing is too, is like I'm living proof of that, because I'm 29 years old now, and I started playing guitar when I was 12, and I taught
Wow.
myself. I've taught myself pretty much almost everything I know, and there's been a lot of growth in that process. So I'm not just this person that's telling you like it's been playing like a year or two, like, oh yeah, it's gonna take a while. It's like I've been playing 17 years, and I'm like, yeah, it takes a hot minute before you know, they talk about that 10 years, 10,000 hours to mastery.
What's some of the best advice you've ever gotten?
To stop doing things for free, but that takes um that takes a certain skill level. It's really hard to boil down to any one particular thing, because I love reading books.
Yeah.
I like hearing people talk. I like I like there's just so much influence to pull from, you know.
Mm.
Um the way that I think is from so many different sources. It'd be very, very hard for me to point to one.
Follow up. Who are some of the most interesting people that you've met in your career or your life, completely open? And what are some of the key bits of lessons that you've taken away from these people?
That a young person can really achieve a lot, uh that you can do way more than you think. I know that's basically the same thing, but it's like, and that sometimes some people are really, really good and don't know what they're doing. When I met Zion, I remember my
Mhm.
friend, he plays guitar, bass, drums, probably ukulele. He can songwrite, he can mix, he can master, he plays saxophone and trumpet, and he can write music.
Wow.
And when I met him in music school, I was still just learning how to like run Ableton. And he was
Hmm.
very, 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 very far ahead of me. And I wouldn't say I felt out of place, but when I went to music school, I was one of the only people around me who could actually play instruments, believe it or not. I was in a music production school. So it's a lot of
Hmm.
dubstep kids who want to make like wubs. At least
Hmm.
that's how it was at the time. So getting to meet another musician, like I said, and seeing that they could do so many things, um, what seemed almost effortless too, was really inspiring to me. And then on the other hand, was seeing someone like my friend Ahmad, who I make music with. He's my best friend actually, but he grew up making beats on a program called Fruity Loops, and he never took lessons. He never watched tutorial videos. He learned to do the stuff in the 2000s, when there was just maybe forums, when it like you had to just figure this stuff out by just doing it. Can't play any instruments really, doesn't have any type of formal training with songwriting really. He has no formal musical training.
Wow.
But when we make music, I kind of allow him to set the vibe. Like we show up to the studio and I'll let him program the drums. I'll let him find a sample and chop it up. I'll let him kind of like, for the most part, like we'll kind of decide what vibe we're going for. But his taste is so good, and his like sense of intuition is so good, and he's done it for so long, that he's so good at making music with what he has in his
Mm.
unorthodox fashion. And that was very eye-opening for me, coming from this place where I'm like a musical educator, and here's a guy who doesn't know any of that, who makes music that's like cooler than mine, and he doesn't know any of that.
How did you and Ahmad connect?
This was like 7 years ago. I used to work at this juice bar called Nectar Juice Bar. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. I used to work at a juice bar, and then he worked at this pizza place right next to it called Earth Bistro. And I started working there for a little while, and immediately we were like friends. And I found out he made beats.
Wow.
I was like, these beats are crazy. And I tried to make music with him for a long time, but he just like, I don't know, just was just doing his own thing, and I wasn't really like on a level to really be contributing much yet. And then we were cool friends, and then we didn't make music together really for like 3 or 4 years until my friend at the time, his name was Travis, um, started making music with him, and then brought me into the fold. And then me and Ahmad have just been making music ever since. So that's been like 4 or 5 years of us working together, and we're finally about to put out an album, hopefully in the next 6 months.
It sounds like your story with Ahmad, how it was kind of the right place at the right time kind of situation.
Yeah, I met him before I went to music school.
Wow. Do you have any piece of advice for young artists who maybe don't really have a large circle right now? Advice for trying to surround yourself with people that propel you forward?
I really do recommend, if you're really serious about what you're doing, that you find some type of trade school to learn. Or if you're not fortunate enough to be able to do that, but you somehow have funding to go to like a community college, and you can start taking introductory classes for certain things like mixing or whatever it is you're into. If you can find some access to like some type of structured education around it where other people want to be learning the same thing, you make a lot of really amazing connections and friends through commonalities. Like I said, the value of being inspired by someone is almost as valuable as going to a class itself, because you seeing the gap between you and someone else, if you
Mm,
don't have this like ridiculous ego, like can inspire you to like go higher. If you're, not you, but if you're someone who's going to get butthurt about seeing someone that's better than you, then stay home. Like,
mm.
leave that energy from everyone else. But
Yeah.
I do recommend getting into some type of learning environment where you're around people who want to be learning the same thing, or getting into communities of people who are into the same thing, such as Facebook groups. Honestly, like, Facebook groups are kind of awesome. No, like, I feel like they're a very underutilized thing. Like, I'm in Facebook groups for like, I'm into the Myers-Briggs personality inventory. So I'm an ENFP. I'm like in like
Nice.
Facebook groups for ENFP. I'm in Facebook groups for like my city, and it's actually like how I find like clients.
So
Um,
interesting.
I'm I'm in, like, Facebook groups are a place to go. You can like look up production Facebook groups or photography Facebook groups or anything like that.
Yeah.
Just see what people are sharing, what people are doing. YouTube videos. We have Amazon Fire Sticks, right? Literally, all of us could just be like, instead of watching TV, we could just be at home putting YouTube on the app and looking up like videos based on like the things we're interested in. And it doesn't always have to be tutorials. It could be like vlogs of people talking about things, or people giving like, you know what I'm saying? People showing the day in the life of a photographer, a musician,
Yeah.
or whatever. Doesn't always have to be a tutorial. Like, what else? There's also like, so for instance, like if you're a producer, oh, Ricky told me about contests. Ricky Baba has like gained a lot of experience and a lot of connections through doing contests. So he recommended that. For me in specific, I'm thinking about like the Kenny Beats beat battle that happen every week. Like, if you're a
Mhm.
producer, I know that every week is like a great way to get your name out there. With the internet, there's kind of no excuse to not find the things you're interested in.
In what ways do you see people kind of shooting themselves in the foot when they try to reach out to different people, build relationships like that? And are there some ways that you see like, this way, if you do it this way, that's not the best way to do it?
It's a great question. Instagram DMs can be great, but you have to provide value, is what they call it, right? Don't ask people for anything for a while. When you're trying to make friends with people, you gotta just like say nice things. You gotta just like don't like kiss up to people, but like if you have someone that's a friend on your story, and you see that they went to like a cool like skate spot, or they went somewhere, you could be like, oh my god, that place is amazing, like that's so cool you went there, or like, like, or congratulate people when they have an achievement. um laugh, react to their stories, like,
Mhm.
be like, kind of just be friendly with people, almost assume familiarity, you know what I'm
Mm.
saying, but in a way where people are get receiving good energy from you. Maybe talk to people about things that they would be interested in. Like, you have to like really look at like, you have to put yourself in the other person's perspective, like,
Mm.
empathy. And you
Yeah.
have to think like, what would bother this person? If this person is really busy, like me sitting there just like asking them like, hey dude, like I'm so depressed, man. Can you just like help me out, man? Could you, you know what I'm saying? Like, can you just like can you make the pain stop? Can you please the way people shoot themselves in the foot is by being annoying. So
Mm.
don't be annoying. Don't be asking people for stuff if they don't owe you anything. No one owes you anything. Just be nice to people, be cool to people, try to catch people where they're at, try to talk to them about the things they like, try to be a person, try to be a real person because people appreciate that. But try to be valuable too. Try to have something to offer. You have to think about what the person's needs are, what they would be interested in and whether you can fit into that mold or whether I don't know. There's so many ways to socially engineer this. Obviously, this all sounds like very manipulative, but there's a bit of that that goes into
No,
this. Like,
yeah.
if you
Yeah.
want to like if you want to get involved in like, really elite circles, sometimes there's like specific people you have to make friends with. You have to find the important person that's connecting everyone. Identify, I guess, who are the people that you should be spending your time trying to get to know. Um, and don't worry about, I guess, negative people. I guess just, be cool to people, be nice to people, be useful to people.
When you were pretty early on in carving your path in your career, is there a certain lifestyle or a group of people that you were hoping to get into, but once you started to pursue that, you realized, maybe that's not really a fit for me?
Really like the entire like, I don't know, like the entertainment industry kind of has like its own like weird vibe to it sometimes. Sometimes it's like so amazing. There's days where like I've gone to do things and I can't sleep that night because it's like, wow, like I got to be around these people that I've known about since I was a child or whatever. But like when you're in LA, like all anyone cares about is like what you can do for them or the clout. I'm not gonna say anyone, but a lot of people it's like that. And I'm glad I spent a lot of time in that community and it gave me a lot of perspective and it gave me a certain, I guess, type of confidence possibly, but at the end of the day, like none of those people like really cared about me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm not saying that
Mm.
to be like, woe is me, but at
Yeah.
the end of the day, like someone could sit there and be really jealous of the things that I've had in my life, but have no idea like the struggles I had to through to get through it, or whether I was doing that for the wrong reasons. And at the end of the day, like my values are kind of changing now that I'm getting towards 30 and I'm starting to look at like the rest of my life. And I'm kind of realizing like being associated with fame or being famous or anything like that feels nowhere near as good if you don't have like really good relationships in your life or if you don't have a sense of like mental, emotional, or financial stability. Yeah, I would say like I love the entertainment industry, but I don't sit here and try to like reach out to it. I don't care about that anymore. I am actually like very happy just teaching music right now, because that can be like an endless void,
Mm.
this endless like void of just trying to be around clout.
So, in your experience in the entertaining industry, have you found a particular personality or particular type of person to be most unhappy in this sort of environment?
You're really neurotic, like being around a bunch of beautiful people all the time that don't care about you is not the move, you know?
Yeah, that's so funny.
If you have really good relationships, if you have that solid base of like a good best friend, a good significant other, a good family, then you can probably handle it. But you need to have like a sense of like your own like values, like your own value system that is like not morally relative to LA. You know what I'm saying? Like not a value system that's based in an LA nightclub relativity, like a
Mm.
value system that's actually based on like things that are good. Like you have
Mm.
to have your perspective of what being a good person is still, I guess.
Yeah, sounds like having a sense, a strong sense of a developed identity, maturity, and awareness of that, and that's kind of the anchor of your person. It
Mhm.
sounds like that's kind of important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because otherwise you can kind of get like splashed around. You're
Yeah.
gonna want to go to every party. You're gonna like want to go to every business meeting. You're gonna want to take every deal. Where like if you have anything to offer, really in the entertainment industry, someone at some point will try to exploit it.
Hmm.
Possibly a lot of people will try to exploit it. So you have to be very conscious of whether the relationships you have are
Yeah.
what are they called? Uh what is it? Reciprocal.
Mhm.
Whether you actually have a reciprocal relationship with people. And for young people, I think that that's really hard to like actually gauge because a lot of us are so dumb and naive when we're young, and
Mhm.
we don't really think about what's important in people's like personalities when we hang out with them until it bites us.
And it sounds like people skills and the ability to provide value to the right people is super important to in this career. Do you see any other like maybe low-key underrated skills that you need to have in order to succeed in that kind of environment?
The people skills is for sure like probably almost more important than the regular skills. Yeah, I mean you have to be able to advocate for yourself. uh so a healthy self-esteem is good.
In what ways does that play out? Or
Because if
yeah.
you don't have a healthy sense of self-worth and self-esteem, then you'll take less than you deserve.
Hmm.
People will offer you something and you'll take less than you deserve. So healthy self-esteem, people skills, providing value, the ability to think critically but also think quickly and not react really intensely under pressure,
Hmm.
the ability to like possibly be energized by pressure, because there is kind of that element to it. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but sometimes like good pressure, eustress, I think is what they'd call it. I don't know, can like really put you into a state of focus, you know.
Hmm.
And if you don't let it like, become this parasympathetic breakdown, then it can be a really beneficial thing for you to kind of like become familiar with that feeling of like adrenaline almost for the things that are important to you.
When you're trying to become a music producer, how do you position yourself so the way you're going is actually sustainable financially for you in the long run?
Oh, wow. Oh my God. No, that's a good question because most people, fuck. It took me so long to learn to like develop a good relationship with money. I never really like thought like found money that important. I actually kind of lived like a feral child a lot of my life. Like, I kind of had to like take some like really intense measures to get the things I needed. Like, I don't know, like you can't see, but in this room there's a lot of money worth of equipment in this room.
Mm.
So like it's very easy to bury yourself in what's called gear acquisition syndrome. Easy to it's easy to spend your entire paycheck on like, let me show you, like an Ableton push, and then you don't have money for groceries
Oh,
anymore. You know?
yeah.
Um, it's easy. Yeah, there's never a limit to like, equipment you can buy. But what I would say is get a good job. Get a good job until things are popping off for you in your music career. If you can, try to get a job that's like pays you to get better at the thing that you're trying to do in some regard. So
Yeah,
for me that was like doing music lessons, because when
yeah.
I'm teaching music, I'm constantly having to like think about it. There's 40 hours a week where I'm thinking about music, like
Hmm.
no matter what, regardless of whether I want to or not. I have to be thinking about music, and I have to be thinking about how to simplify it for someone else to understand. And so through this like constant refinement process of like trying to figure out how to like communicate these ideas to people, I've like developed like such a deeper understanding. If you can try to get some type of job related to what you're doing, that might not necessarily be exactly what you're doing, but it's related to it enough that'll pay you to stay in your field and stay inspired and feel that sense of like fulfillment still
Mm,
in your in you know that you're doing things kind of in your purpose and your path. But if not, just try to have a job where you're not worrying about a roof over your head or basic expenses, things like that, and that you have a reasonable amount of time to where when you're off, you're not so tired from your physical job that you can't do anything. Um, Try to get a job where people don't treat you so poorly that you're emotionally exhausted. As much as like creative people try to pretend like it doesn't matter, like having money is very important. Like your life is so stressful if you don't have money, and when you're stressed out, like it's really hard to like devote time to making art because if you think
mm,
about it, it's like your body's in like survival mode because you're literally not meeting your physical and emotional needs. So
mm,
why would it devote more energy towards making art and pursuing your passion when like it's like how am I going to pay for rent this month?
yeah,
Um so don't be irresponsible in your pursuit to achieve if possible. um, that's what I would say. You should do to sustain it.
yeah,
Exercise. Recognize when you're becoming like a one-sided dimensional person where like you're not getting enjoyment from the thing that you're supposed to be doing anymore.
yeah.
Because you can reach that point pretty quickly where like you're like so focused on doing the thing that you're supposed to do where you drain yourself of like the joy of it for a while because you're just like beating your head against the wall, recognizing when you need to take steps back, um,
Mm.
because the burnout is real.
What do you do to deal with burnout?
When I can feel myself getting burned out, I try to not like put any more on my plate than I can really handle. I try not to
Yeah,
like throw myself into obligations that I'll resent,
yeah.
because of where I'm at. I try to just be honest with people about like my energy levels because people like aren't gonna if people know that you work hard all the time and then you tell them like one week like dude I'm dead, I cannot link up to make music, I just gotta like I gotta stay at home and watch movies, I gotta stay at home and like force myself to do something for the pure purpose of like recuperation, I gotta go to the
Mhm.
sauna, like I gotta do all this stuff, treat it like
Yeah.
you're sick, treat it like you're that's what
Yeah.
you know
I'm yeah, in terms of the finances, again, as a producer, at what point do you get paid? Do you work with a label? I'm sure there are multiple routes that you can go there, but
Yeah, so that's a great question. So, I've never, well, actually, no, I've released under a label one time, and I used to intern at a label.
Mhm.
I'm kind of unorthodox about a lot of things. Like, I get almost all my business from just word of mouth. I've never applied to work at a music label. I've never applied to work for some type of photography company. I've been fortunate enough to where like I have a reputation amongst the people around me where people talk and people refer me. So for me personally, it's been like private clients that will ask like they'll hear something that I've made with a mod and they'll ask like if they can come do a session. And then for myself, I just do like a flat rate for like just like a studio session.
Yeah.
And that is really based on like word of mouth, product quality, and then from there it's cultivating and managing relationships. I made the good decision of having invested in all this equipment and having learned how to use all of it, um, and having made stuff that people liked enough to where they've decided that they wanted to like sound like that or do that thing.
Mhm.
So, what you have to do if you, I mean, like if you're doing it my route, you have to have the studio, you have to have a good environment where people would want to spend time in. That's why like there's all these paintings in here and stuff.
Mhm.
I mean, it's really mostly for me because I need to have an aesthetic environment to live in. But it's for other people too to feel like they're in a place of like creation. Be so good that people refer you. Be so nice that people refer you. Because that really means a lot. People really, really want to like be around people that make them feel good about themselves, and are kind and are gentle somewhat.
Mhm.
So that's been my experience, is just like people reaching out to me for like sessions. You know, if you're doing it through a label, I actually don't even know how that works, because I am
Mhm.
not going to sit here and like, I'm not going to sit here and make a bunch of beats for the hopes that maybe some pack will end up on a Drake song or something. I don't care. I'd rather make music that I like and I know I like, and I'm not trying to sound like anyone else, with my best friend. I'd rather do things like almost purely for myself than to do percentages for like labels and
Mm.
stuff, unless it's like really, really in my interest. I think the music industry and a lot of art in general, like there is like a big incentive to like kind of screw you over and to
Mm.
take a lot of your money, because people have this mentality in the entertainment industry, like you're just lucky to be there. What I've learned through freelancing on my own is, and just like doing my own business, is that like if you can make all the money into yourself, it's way better. If something comes along that's really, really in my benefit to work with a label or whatever, like great, I'm down for it, you know. But I like being able to set my own price. I like having my own set of rules. I like making my own mistakes, not having anyone in my ear trying to like bitch at me about things. I like doing things on my own terms. But that's me. That's me, because I probably don't even know better. I probably haven't experienced better.
And looking back in your career early on, is there anything that you, if you could redo it again, is there anything that you would do differently?
Maybe not get fired by an A-list rapper. Maybe I would have done differently.
You mentioned that for that gig with the rapper, you were not as prepared. In what ways were you unprepared?
I so the job was as a playback engineer, and it required like really a lot of audio engineering expertise, and that was like the part of like school that I neglected. I
Hmm.
really was more so focused on like the music side of things and sound design and production and creative aspects, and I like didn't really like focus on mixing and mastering. I was truthfully very intimidated by it when I was in school. I had like some mental blocks towards doing it. So when I got that job, I was just like not very prepared on that regard to do engineering work, really. I was in over my head, and the job was much more esoteric than I thought. It was very different, and I should have known a lot more. Like I should have paid more attention in school during the mixing parts of it. And it's still something I've been wrestling with till this day. Like I'm still teaching myself how to mix. Like I'm still
Mm.
like kind of grappling with, wondering whether my mixes are good enough or whatever. And I've brought my mixes to people. Like I have a friend named Jay Young who works at Warner Chappelle right now, like the label.
Hmm.
He heard my mixes for some of the stuff for this new album, and he thought it was great. He said he had no notes. I would have paid more attention on the mixing aspect of school, because that really, really bit me, because I could be making like hundreds of thousands of dollars a year right
Yeah.
now, traveling the world, you know
Yeah.
with A-list artists. But I wasn't prepared, and I got the job based on my personality and some nepotism. You live and you learn. That showed me what I didn't know. It illuminated it, made it pretty hard to ignore.
I don't know, it sounds like you have this complex relationship with art. It's deeper than the lifestyle, it's deeper than finances alone. And when you're mentioning how fulfilling it was teaching was it an autistic 9-year-old music and seeing how they could play the guitar, it sounds like you're an artist at heart.
Yeah, man, I can't help that I love this so much. It's like involuntary, and it has given me such a deep sense of like never ending like mystery and wonder and like fulfillment. I do it for the sake of the work itself. I'm just so obsessed with it, and I'm so obsessed with like progressing it and becoming more exceptional over time. And life is fleeting. At the end of the day, like all of this is going to sound philosophical, but like
It's great.
modern society is like very, very young. We come from tribes, so at the end of the day, it's like, who cares if I choose to spend my life just focusing on art? Like none of this matters. We lived in tribes before. I'm just obsessed with it. It's given me such a
Mhm.
deep sense of meaning and
Yeah.
purpose and fulfillment, and it's a path to mastery. To me, it's like the path where like the spiritual and the technical meet. The spiritual, the
Mhm.
artistic, and the technical all meet. because music is a very, very complex thing, so it involves math. But in order to make music in a way that really, really connects to people, you have to have a soul. You have to have a soul that's deeply
Yeah.
affected by things, and you have to like make things that deeply, deeply affect you. Because if they don't affect you, they can't affect anyone else. um so it's the mental, the artistic, and the spiritual all in one. So it's been this like path to self-discovery for me, and a path towards like higher consciousness for me.
Oh, I love that. So, a path of self-discovery. Sounds like a long-term process for me. Sounds like something that will continue and something that you never outgrow.
Yeah, until I die.
Do you have any last words to any aspiring young people who look at you and say, like what I love what he does. I'd love to follow that path.
I heard this phrase like a week or two ago with my girlfriend, and we thought it was so cool. They say you have to learn the scales before you jam. So get good at what you want to do. Don't sit here and expect the result of like admiration or finances, you know, if you're not willing to put in the time to become exceptional. Just get good at what you're going to do.